How to create consistent brand content across all platforms. Because consistency is important, because you have to stand for something, and you have to have a brand that means something, and you have to have a brand that's simple to follow and easy to follow, and you can't be one thing on TikTok and then another thing on Instagram and another thing on LinkedIn and another thing on Facebook and another thing over here. You have to be the same thing everywhere you are. What I tell people that are coming onto social because they kind of get tripped up on this whole idea is like, who should I be? What character should I be? And as soon as you're thinking that way, you're kind of off not to a good start. You should be thinking about, who am I actually before I start, before I get on camera? So when you get on camera, you're more authentic to who you are, and then you're not worrying about it. You're just being who you are all the time, right? And that's kind of the goal. That's where you want to get. That's where the consistency comes in. Being consistent with who you are as a person, what you stand for, what your brand is, what your image is, and doing that across all platforms. It's like Gary Vee says, think about it in terms of
document versus create.
Think about your social media in terms of documenting in that. All you're doing is turning a camera on to you, and you're doing what you always do all the time everywhere. If you go to the gym, turn the camera on. If you have meetings, turn the camera on. If you're traveling, turn the camera on, and just be who you are. Don't go, oh no, the camera's on, now I have to be someone else. And I think it's really important to be consistent, because you don't want to be stopping to think for a moment, I was just on stage, I had to be the character that I was on stage, and now I just got off stage and now I have to be someone else now that I'm off stage, which we see quite often. And to me, it's very difficult to maintain that, because it's like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of thing. And I know I don't want to live that way. I want to be able to walk around freely. If I see someone in a Starbucks, I'm going to talk to them the same way that I'm talking to you on this camera. Or if I'm in a meeting in a conference room, or I'm with my family, or whatever it is, I just want to be the same person where I am everywhere all the time. And I think that is the key foundational piece of consistency, is to be consistent to who you are, what you stand for. So then that way, on all your platforms, it's simple and clean and easy to follow, and they're like, oh, there's that person again, I recognize them for this thing. And the reason why it's important to be consistent on all platforms is because it builds recognition, right? So you watch these children's shows, is probably the greatest example. They wear the same uniforms all the time, like Blippi wears the same outfit every time. Same color, same clothes, same outfit every time, you remember them. Ronald McDonald, whoever it is, they wear the same outfit every single time. The Ninja Turtles have specific colors, they wear the same outfit every time, every day, all the time, right? Because you recognize that. Apple, Coca-Cola, they have certain colors, certain images that are they're burned in your brain at this point. You see them everywhere, right? And they keep it simple, and they don't go changing their colors all the time to confuse you, to confuse their audience. They keep it super simple. So the logo definitely symbolizes and should speak to what your brand is, but it should be easy for the audience to follow. Your logo should symbolize the value that you bring, what is your messaging, and what your brand and your purpose actually is, but you should be consistent with it and don't change it every 3 or 4 months. Get it right first and think about it well thought out. I mean, people have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions to get their logo right. So it's something that is worth taking the time to think about and refining it and making it super simple so a 4th grader could follow it. Because if it's too complicated and it has too much detail in it, and it's too robust and it's too confusing, you're not going to remember it. People ask me all the time, well, why Dorothy House? A lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is the name Sticky. Dorothy House is a sticky name. So if I met you in New Zealand tomorrow and I talk to you for 5 minutes, we might talk about a bunch of different stuff that's general. But if I tell you the name Dorothy House, you're gonna remember it. If I say, oh, it's XYZ agency from Orange County, you're gonna forget, right? Everyone's an agency. Everyone has, there's a pool and a sea of people that have a name, an agency after it. So be more creative and be more thought out about what your brand name is, what it symbolizes, what it means, because you want it to be sticky and memorable. And if you can attach a story to your logo, to your brand, then people are really going to remember it. A story that's meaningful. I had a lady in here yesterday who I was talking to who is going to be a potential client, and I was telling her the story behind Dorothy House, what it means, why it's meaningful to us. And then she goes, wow, that's amazing. I never really knew that, right? And now she'll never forget. She's never going to forget that, because There's a story that's attached to it that's meaningful and it's valuable, and the name is sticky. It's hard to forget, and that was an intentional, well thought out plan that we had when we created the name, and that is something that symbolizes something to us, like the house aspect of it. When you go to an agency, you wait in the cold lobby and have a cold glass of water. If you're lucky, sometimes they don't even give you water. You might not even get water, okay? And the secretary might be mean. But when you go to someone's house, unless they're an asshole, they invite you in and you have a cup of coffee, you break bread, you might get cookies, you might have a conversation, you never know. You might have a nice evening, you might be lighting candles. I mean, it could go any way, right? But when you go to an agency, it's not as exciting. Tips on best practices. Regularly update your brand style guide. Use templates for your content. Make sure everyone on your team is aligned with your brand guidelines. This is super important, guys, because if it's well thought out and your team is aligned with what the brand means, and everyone's, I would say most importantly, before being aligned, is probably bought in. If your team's not bought in to what the brand stands for, and they don't believe in what the brand stands for, and they don't believe in what you're doing, you're in trouble. So I would back up a little bit and make sure that everyone's bought into your brand image, what you stand for, what you're trying to do, because then it becomes a mission, a purpose. It becomes bigger than the brand. It becomes a culture, it becomes a phenomenon, and that's really where you want to get. Those are the brands that explode and go widespread. When you have a culture that believes deeply in something that you stand for and something that you're striving for, that's really what counts. And if you establish that first and you build a rock solid foundation on that, on the value, on the image of your brand, if you start there and you deal with that first, everything else is easy. Templates, your branding style, your guideline, everything is easier to get aligned. So we talk about this constantly because people are always asking us, and that's actually a great sign. I was thinking about that this morning. People are always intrigued about our brand. They're like,
What's this? What's this? There's color everywhere.
it's so interesting, right? Because of the aesthetic and the style and a certain flavor that we bring to it, because we think about it deeply and we care very much about the brand image, the style, the aesthetic. We want people to respond that way, where they're like, I don't know what's going on over here, but it's pretty cool and it seems interesting and I want to be a part of it, and tell me more. And so if that's happening to you on a regular basis, if people aren't just glossing over your brand or your message like they do junk mail on the counter, they just gloss over a flyer and throw it in the trash, then you might be onto something. So I think start there first and realize with the leaders of the team and the founder and the people that are with you early on, and go, what's cool? What do we like? What can we latch onto? And what can we have a lot of fun with? For us, we have a darker aesthetic. Like, it's important for us for our videos to be super sexy and larger than life. We want them to be cinematic, high level quality. Like, we cannot accept a video being like, we just can't. It's just, we will not allow that to happen. People come to us with all sorts of new ideas. As you know, all you got to do is turn on YouTube or TikTok and there's some new flavor of the day. Oh, you got to try this. Oh, you got to try that. And while we take that in and we take everything into consideration, we never compromise what we stand for with respect to the image and what we've established and the value of the brand and the aesthetic of the brand and everything that we put into everything that we're doing. We do not compromise on that no matter what. We don't care what anybody says. We don't care if people are like, oh, this is the new trend, this is that, this and that. It doesn't matter. And guess what? These brands, the biggest brands on earth, were uncompromising as well, right? They stood for what they stood for at any means necessary. Google, Apple, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Coca-Cola and McDonald's worked together collaboratively early on. McDonald's was about to go down, Coca-Cola stepped in, and that's why they have this exclusive, beautiful relationship that is still lasting to this day. Amazon, same thing. They were making fun of Jeff Bezos when he was selling books on the internet. They were like, what's wrong with this dude? This is never gonna work. I bet they're feeling like right now. The mission and the value of the brand itself is so important. If you get that right, what you're actually trying to do, then you dress it with a name. that fits that plan appropriately. So that's my best advice. Think about what you're actually trying to do. What message are you trying to convey? What are you trying to do? What impact are you trying to make? We had a client recently, they didn't really know. I think they had some idea of what they were trying to do, and they had sort of a plan. It was a good plan, I mean, but they were too stuck and too hung up on all the wrong stuff. They were just confused about all the noise and the distortion, about getting hung up on the logo itself and getting hung up on all the stuff that comes, I personally think, last. I think you come up with the mission first and think about the values and what you're trying to do, who you're trying to serve, and then put a name on top of that that symbolizes the thing that you stand for. So step one, get step one right first, then think about the logo, dress it with the logo that matches it perfectly so there's no confusion there. Then you stand tall and feel confident about this thing that you stand for. Like when we walk around with pride with our shirts on because we can recite it, we could wake up out of a dead sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning and tell you exactly what we stand for and what we're trying to do. And we're confident about it. We can stand in front of anyone, anytime, anywhere, and it doesn't bother us because we're super clear about what we stand for and what we're trying to do. And I believe that that is probably the single most important thing that you can think about first. Then everything comes easy after that. It's very easy. Call it whatever you want, but be clear first. And you know I love Coca-Cola. I'm trying to do something with Coca-Cola, some sponsorship, commercial. I'm trying to manifest it. I know it's going to happen. Coca-Cola is one of those all-time American brands, and it tastes better than anything else. Pepsi tastes like shit. It sucks. I used to love Regal Cinema until they lost the Coca-Cola contract after COVID. I was devastated. They spent all this money remodeling the Regal Cinema over here by my house. And then I show up right when COVID's done and to see all the Pepsi products in there. I was absolutely furious. Not only do I love, first of all, it's a badass logo. Let's just start there. And a great name. It's the and their Christmas commercials are the shit too. And it tastes good. It's just good. Everything about it's good. And it's so damn exclusive, they don't put up with anyone's shit. Guess what? You don't want to work with us? They yank it out. And that's probably what they did to Regal. I'm sure it was about money. These people aren't lowering their standards for someone else. It's Coca-Cola, you know, and that's where you want to get. Like, you want to get to that point where it's like, I'm Coca-Cola, motherfucker, you know? Like Kim K's at that point now. She's like, no, I'm Kim K. I'm going to get whatever I want. I'm getting my plane right now and I'm going to fly to Paris and get a piece of cheesecake. Like, that's where your brand needs to get, or at least for me, what's the point of even starting if you're starting out average? Shoot for the stars. And if you miss, you might hit the moon, or maybe it's the other one. I don't really know. Shoot for the moon and you might hit the stars. But you get the point. So like, think about it. This is like really important. And then we were kind of talking about these manufactured characters that people create. They get on camera and they're like, ooh, who should I be today? Let me think. Should I be Mr. Gadget? Or who should I be today? But you just need to be yourself when you're on camera all the time, and that solves all your problems, okay? So stop trying to dress yourself up and put on your cape and your mask, because guess what? When you get on camera, everybody could see through you anyway. Define your brand guidelines. Be super clear about it. As I said, it's like a waterfall. Everything falls into place once you're clear about your mission and your values, who you're trying to serve. For us, we're trying to serve entrepreneurs who understand the value of social. That's where the attention is. That's where they want to go. If they want to scale their brand, they know they could do that in collapse time. They need someone to help them with that. We're the person that helps them. We're their guide. They're the hero. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker. We open up the door, let you into our house, and we help you, and we live happily ever after. That's basically how it goes. Maintain a consistent visual identity, okay? You can't be the orange Ninja Turtle, purple, green, change it every single day. Be consistent. It's not that hard. Establish a consistent tone of voice. This is a good one. I'm gonna touch on this one really quick because we get people, they're not sure what to do. They're like, should I be Bane? Should I be Batman? Like, who should I be today? And I just think like you be who you are, and it's like woo, 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 like a roller coaster up and down. And yeah, like me, I get animated, but I'm kind of calm, but not really. Like when I'm talking, I'm somewhat animated, and I just be who I am, and I'm unapologetic. And like, I get all kinds of crazy comments. People talk so much shit to me, it's not even funny, but I don't really care because it's just who I am, and I know that they're just not feeling good about themselves. But you really look like a fool if you're trying to be something that you're not, and then people make fun of you, and then you're really gonna feel like shit. I was using this example about like the actor, right? So Forrest Gump as an example. It's like, who am I gonna be today? Forrest Gump or Tom Hanks? Forrest Gump or Tom Hanks? Well, Tom Hanks was Forrest Gump for the duration of the movie, and then he went back to being Tom Hanks. Daniel Day-Lewis was Abraham Lincoln for the duration of the movie, then he went back to being Daniel Day-Lewis. We're not doing that. Like, you're not supposed to be an actor and you're not reading off of a script. You need to be who you are in this sense. It's like documentary. Like, just be who you are all the time. And I always tell people to like think about their life. All you have to do is stop, sit down, and think about your life from the past, and it's like a highlight reel. And it's kind of sad because a lot of that stuff wasn't captured, and if it was, you know, like when you're sitting across from someone on a couch, sometimes you're telling them a story about your friend Jane or whatever, and you're like, if you only could have been there. I mean, I'm trying to explain it as best I can, but it was the most amazing thing you've ever seen, and you're trying your best to bring your friend to that situation and explain it to them so they could experience what you experienced, but you can't. You just can't. So that's why, that's the thing that I really like about the video and what I've been doing lately is it's like, this is a real opportunity to capture moments and really capture them how they are, like organic. And for me, I'm passionate about a few things. In this last year, we went to Horror Nights and to Not Scary Farm, and that's something that I've done my whole life. And I have like no content, like literally nothing. I have some photos and I save my lanyards, but I've been going for like a decade and I basically have nothing. It's like crazy. And I've met all sorts of people there and everything else. Now, it's just, I wasn't thinking about it at one time until I got into this industry, and then I'm like, I wish I would have had a camera during that moment, or a concert that I went to, or somebody that I met, or whatever it is. So that's the advantage of what we have now, is that you have a real opportunity to have a camera on you at all times, and you don't really know when those magic moments are gonna happen, and you don't want to get caught off guard. And the best, probably the most likely way to get caught off guard is if you're in and out of character. I mean, that's a terrible way to live. Like if you're in public, you're like, okay, I gotta put on the character now, and then now I'm not the character, and I gotta put a hat on and a hood so nobody sees me when I'm eating breakfast at this restaurant. Like, fuck that. I don't wanna live like that. I just wanna be who I am. So if you're lucky enough and celebrity finds you and you blow up on Instagram or you blow up on TikTok or whatever it is, now you don't have to worry. You just be who you are all the time. And to me, that's so freeing. And that's the advantage of what we do here on social. And I know that's what I want, so that's my advice. Yeah, and I do like this idea of brand guidelines, but again, I think it comes back to like being clear about your mission and your vision and your purpose, and really establishing that first, because then it makes the guidelines very simple. And then once you establish those guidelines, you never fall out of those parameters. And one of my favorite quotes is, obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off your goal. It's so true. So like if you don't have clear goals, you're gonna fall off the beam, because you're gonna bump into people, you're gonna come into a situation and you're gonna go, yeah, I'll do it, but maybe it wasn't the right move, and maybe it wasn't aligned with who and what you were. You might save yourself time, money, frustration, and God knows what else. So I think it's super important to be consistent and clear and establish your brand identity, your brand vision, your brand mission, and then the guidelines fall into place beautifully. And then be consistent about posting calendar. I stand with Gary Vee. The guy's like, look,
You should be putting out 7 to 25 pieces of content on both those platforms a day.
anyone that says that, oh no, that's too much and this and that, maybe the stories, because I think people get annoyed when you have like 100 stories, they just sweep through. But when it comes to the feed, especially Reels, I stand with Gary Vee because of the discovery page. And you just never know. What video 1012 might be the one that cracks. But the more volume that you do, the more practice you get. It's like playing an instrument or playing a sport. The more practice you get, the better you're gonna get, number one. Number two, there's billions of people and tens of thousands, I don't even know, probably millions of posts a day going out. So how are you gonna stand out if you're doing one post a week or one post a month or one post every 3 days? That's never gonna work, ever. So I would say the standard is to move up to four times a day in the feed and 4 times a day in the story on Instagram and 4 times a day everywhere else, and try to get to that, and 2 long form per week on YouTube if you could get to that. And that's a lot, right? So it's probably better to have it scheduled and well thought out as to when you're gonna post and on what platforms. It's sounding like my long forms are being posted on YouTube on Thursdays, which is great. So they know, okay, we gotta be prepared for the long form. This video will probably go out next Thursday. If it's good enough, we might have to scrap it, but you never know. Regularly review and update. Don't be an asshole. No, I'm kidding. Nobody likes an asshole. Have you ever heard that? Adapt to new trends. Oh, let me hit the brakes here. Adapt to new trends while staying true. Okay. To your brand guidelines. That's why it's like, people will call us and they'll be like, I just watched this video on TikTok and it told me to do this. And we're like, yeah, sounds great. We take it in, and then we run it through the filter of what we do. As long as it doesn't compromise our brand guidelines, what we stand for, the mission, the vision, our values, we're open to it. We're open to it. A different approach or whatever it is. But we will never go backwards when it comes to aesthetic. That just doesn't make sense to me. Why am I gonna make a movie in 1950s style when I can make it in 2024 style? When I have all these resources available to me to make the baddest video ever and make it to my liking, my style, my aesthetic, the way I want it. Like Tim Burton, he's not gonna let a studio come to him and be like, you should pour a little vanilla on your video to make it a little more like Disney. He's gonna be like, well, fuck you, I'm not gonna do it. I'm Tim fucking Burton and this is my style and that's how I do it, right? That's where you wanna be. I'm a curious cat, okay? And I wanna know stuff because especially the little stuff that's kind of hidden. It's like, not that it's like private or not public, but it's the stuff that you don't hear about every day, which is you find out how things were actually done and made. And I learned something about, I'm a huge fan of Tim Burton and a huge fan of Danny Elfman, and how that relationship came about is so interesting. And Tim Burton, I love this example, was fired from Disney. He was an animator and he was literally fired from Disney for drawing weird characters, which later turned out to be the Nightmare Before Christmas characters. And he was unforgiving and relentless about the stuff that he wanted to do, and he didn't let it bother him. He got fired. He ended up making Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure, collaborated with Danny Elfman on that. Later, eventually made Batman. Jack Nicholson was brave enough, Michael Keaton, to get involved with the movie, and they were probably said, maybe you guys, maybe you shouldn't do this. And of course, we know what happened with that. It absolutely exploded and was a larger-than-life film, but he didn't compromise. Like, he did things the way that he wanted to do it, and that is what I'm saying, is that look what happened to him. Like, look at his legacy. You go to Disneyland and you're seeing something that is so massive. The Nightmare Before Christmas theme is the characters and the toys and the shirts and everything that has been made as a result of his imagination, and something that was maybe a little bit edgy and too edgy for Disney at the time, but now it makes them more money than anything else, I think, at this point. I think they literally make more money from the Nightmare Before Christmas merch than any other merch, probably combined, I would imagine. They own the IP, obviously, but without Tim Burton, they could have never done it. And this is what I'm saying, is that no matter what it is, whatever you're doing, you have to have that intense belief in your own imagination, your own purpose, your own mission, the thing that you believe in. You cannot compromise on that. And don't run it through the filter of all this noise that's all around us everywhere. And think about, at that time, we didn't have really the internet in the 80s. We didn't have the internet in the 80s. We didn't have social media. We didn't have all this other shit. But he had pressure from vanilla Disney animators that were like, this guy's too edgy for us. But look, when's the last time these motherfuckers did anything original? I mean, they have to buy now because there's nobody left. They got to buy Pixar. They had to take Tim Burton's design. They have to buy Star Wars. See, that's the whole point. So that can be your story. It's not that you're going to be Tim Burton or do what he did, but you have to be like that, have that intense burning desire inside and believe in the thing that you believe in, and just stay focused on that and don't compromise no matter what, because that's the only thing that lasts in this world. Unless you want to be in one day and gone the next. I don't want that. I want to last, because I'm going to be stuck here for a while, right? And so are you. So that's my advice. I'll leave you with that. Like, share, subscribe, and be on the lookout for free downloads and free value on my website and on my YouTube channel. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you. I'd like to hear about your favorite brand and who you think has the best logo. I'd love to talk about that. I mean, I'm always looking to talk with people in the comments. I love it when people get involved in the comment section. Usually the most interactive and active ones in the comment section tend to happen with music. When I do the music interviews and we talk about our favorites of anything, that stirs up so much shit. Like one of my interviews where we're talking about the best rock band. I mean, I can't believe how much like interaction and conversation that created. It's still going on even now, which is great, and I love that. I want to talk to people, I want to hear from them, I want to hear their opinion. But anyway, stay true to who you are. I'd love to hear from you. We can chat anytime. You know how to get a hold of us. Thank you.